Hello, hello, hello. I don't even know if this thing is working or not. I don't even know. But welcome to Conversations with Tequila, where I have a lot to say. Okay. As you guys know, I love to read. I like to talk about things. I like to talk about books, and I like to talk about what I read in those books. Amen. So first of all, Happy New Year. My bad. Let me clean up my area for y'all so y'all don't gotta see my water and all that good stuff. um Happy New Year. Happy 2026. I hope your new year is everything you want it to be and feel it should be and all of that good stuff. So the book that I'm going to discuss today is named Longing to Tell. Let me get the full. I want it because it's a long title. It's named Longing to Tell. Black Women Talk About Sexuality and Intimacy. And it's by Tricia, I hope I'm saying that right, Tricia Rose. Let me give you the background of this book. In this revealing volume, Black women discuss their sexual lives from coming of age and erotic adventures to AIDS, abuse, and interracial dating. In a culture driven by sexual and racial imagery, very few honest conversations about race, gender, and sexuality actually take place. In their absence, commonly held perceptions of Black women as teenage mothers, welfare recipients, mammies, or exotic sexual playthings remain unchanged. Rather than risk being stereotyped, most Black women have retreated into silence. Now, Tricia Rose breaks this silence by presenting the sexual testimonies of Black women. The 20 women included in this volume span a broad range of ages, educational levels, and socioeconomic backgrounds. In their own words, they talk about startling honesty. They talk with startling honesty about sex, love, family, relationships, and intimacy. Their stories dispel prevailing myths and provide revealing insights into how Black women navigate the complex terrain of sexuality. Nuanced, rich, and powerful. Longing to Tell is a required reading for anyone interested in issues of race and gender. And let me tell you, let's say this, I opened up the first, like in the introduction, I have things highlighted. Like that's how I knew this book was going to be really, really good and something that I would really be interested in reading. But even from the even from the description of the book, I said, I like anthology style books, period. I love hearing stories. I feel like this book is definitely an oral history of these women documenting what they've been through throughout their life that have gotten them to the point of their testimony. This book was published in 2004. So what this would be now 22 years ago, this book came out. If you've been around here for a while, you'll know that I had the opportunity to interview Darkoa Sekiyama, and she wrote The Sexual Lives of African Women. Phenomenal book. I'll tag it in the description if you haven't read it. I think you should go out there and read it. I believe it's still on my podcast channel. You should definitely indulge. It was really good. And that was a very eye-opening book as well. Like, it was really intense. I want to say that this book has also been very intense. Trigger warning, it does discuss rape, incest, all types of stuff that may cause some offense or even emotional harm. So just, reader beware. However, it was a very eye-opening experience in reading it from that time. Although it was still in the 21st century, it was on the cusp of the 21st century where, in my opinion, the Black woman, the quote unquote stereotypical Black woman, was still heavily looked upon as the welfare recipient, as the exotic thing, as the stripper. I'm not saying that we're still not looked upon as that, but I think there's a little bit more awareness now that ain't the case. Okay. So this first chapter, the name of this first chapter, let me pull it up. The name of this first chapter anthology, I believe, is going from pain to rescue. I'm going to get it. But when you open it, you'll see the different stories that's being told during that time. And one of the first questions that came to me as I was reading this book, like, how am I going to frame this is it possible to have intimacy with a stranger? That was the first question that came to me. I want to say another question that came to me was, is it possible to experience true intimacy after trauma? Now, I'm not just because the first chapter also talks about betrayal. And one of the stories, one of the historical tellings, sorry, an individual got pregnant by her boyfriend. And while she got pregnant by her boyfriend, her best friend at the time was sleeping with said boyfriend. So she's confiding in her friend all of these things that she's going through with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend and her best friend are getting it on hot and heavy. Of course, she goes on to have the baby. Believe it or not, she even goes on to marry this man after the baby was born. I mean, wild. This individual experienced betrayal on so many different levels. And she talks about how she doesn't trust anymore. And no, she doesn't. She's very cautious. Unfortunately, she was essayed by one person, and then it happened. It almost happened on multiple occasions to her, and she blames herself. And I find that that's a common theme among individuals who have experienced essay. I do want to read one of the passages from the book that stood out to me, because this to me is a cusp of the beginning of many Black women's stories where sexuality and intimacy is concerned. Now, I have to pull this up. She writes, "My mom talked a bit about sex with me, but not as much as she should have. More or less just a friendly paternal reminder. Don't let these boys get under your dress. Don't bring no babies here. If you get a baby, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to mind that baby." That kind of stuff. But never sitting down to talk about how you're going to have a relationship or what you want to look for in a boyfriend. My grandmother was 15 when she had my mom. That was back in the day when that's what most folks did. And then my mom was 15 when she had me. Then I came up on being 15 when I got pregnant with mine. So it's like, let's break the cycle somewhere. Don't continue it. I guess my mom had a fear of this cycle being repeated. I've never really asked her. It's broken now because my boys didn't do it. And my grandmother on the other side, she always did talk about it, but it was like a secret subject about the quiet stuff. That's just for grown-ups. I was never grown up in my grandmother's eyes until I brought my own baby home. That's when I was a grown-up. And I read that scripture. I'm a church person. I read that passage like I think a lot of people could relate to that being their first introduction of what sex was like or what the talk about sex was like. It was always, don't do it. Just don't do it. Mind you, everyone's doing it, but you don't do it, right? That was a lot of people's first experiences, especially in those from the African diaspora, Afro-Caribbean, Black American, African American, whatever. It was a common thread amongst us. I know it was for me. And unfortunately, I'm seeing those cycles still being repeated. I'm glad that cycle of having children in their teens was broken by her children. But it's unfortunate that discussion was never had. It was only had in this arbitrary way. Like, just don't do it. Because if you do it, it's going to be hard. Well, mommy, you did it. Well, grandma, you did it. Why shouldn't I do it? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I feel as if that's something that continues to happen in our, in our communities or what have you, that needs to be broken. Hold on one second. Another aspect I would like to discuss. Because there are a lot of things that came to me while I was reading this. Like, one of the questions was, what is one belief about sex you inherited and are still in deciding whether to keep? That is powerful. Like, a lot of us have preconceived notions of what intimacy is with a partner. But do we really believe it? Is your definition of intimacy something you live out? What is your definition of intimacy, right? Do people even understand what intimacy is? Oh, another theme that surrounded this chapter was silence. Mm, mm, mm. Of the, let me see, was it 3 of them? All of them have been essayed and no one reported it. No one reported it. One lady didn't report it. She was just one of many in the community that have been essayed by this individual. Because they would talk about it amongst themselves, but no one had enough, in them, which is not their fault. They were afraid to go to the police. In one of the incidents, one of the ladies thought they're going to say it's my fault, which I still think is a common thread today. So she didn't. In that group of people that was essayed by this one individual, one of them did decide, I'm going to go to the police and report this. I do not want this to continue. And that man turned around and assaulted her. He did something really bad to her. So the police never got involved. It looks like he must have caught wind that the police were going to, that she was going to go to the police. And he heard her. At least that's the way I read it. All I know is that the police never got involved. So again, people experience these things. She said she never told her mother. She never told anyone in her family. She says only 2 of her close girlfriends ever knew that she was essayed by this individual. Another common theme of it was my fault. One of the stories was, I knew what was happening. I could see it, I could feel it, but part of me didn't trust it. Like I could, why did he drive me here? I asked him to drive me home. Why didn't he drive me home? Oh, he said he needed to make a stop. In this one situation, they made the stop. And it was at a hotel. And he was like, oh, I left, I told you I was staying by my friend's house, but I left something upstairs and I need to go get it. It was cold outside. He was like, don't wait outside. Now, mind you, this is somebody she knew. That's another thing. A lot of essays do happen from people who are known to you, not strangers. But he was known to her. She had no reason, although it didn't feel right to her. She was like, I asked him to bring me home. Why is he stopping here? Like she had all of the thoughts, but she did not follow them. She did not listen to them. So he's like, oh yeah, I left something upstairs. You can come out, don't sit in the car and wait. Come upstairs with me. And she did. And unfortunately, he essayed her. And because it was someone who was known to her, she didn't say anything. I don't know. It was not explicitly clear if she felt like anyone wouldn't believe her, but it was explicit in her telling that she felt like it would have been looked upon as her fault because I should have never went upstairs with him. Why did I go into his hotel room? I should have just waited in the lobby. I should have just waited in the car. And I'm reading this and I'm like, sis, that could have happened to anyone. Like that's not your fault. But granted, I'm not talking to her. I don't know her, what have you. But it was very powerful to hear the retelling of that story. And it's painful. It's painful to read. Very, very painful. And then to still know that this individual blames themselves for it. A lot of these women want to go on and experience intimacy after these painful things that have happened to them. That is also one of the cruxes of this chapter. They want to go on and experience intimacy. They want to know what it's like to be completely open with another individual without having to worry about betrayal or being hurt or, being wondered if there's an ulterior motive to why you want to be close to me or what have you. And another one of the stories, a lady, she gets her intimacy from her best friend. She flat out said that. She was like, yeah, I've tried to open up myself in relationships and I just feel as if it ain't for me, but I have this one best friend who just understands me completely and totally, which I kind of have a theory around that, but that's another episode for another time. And I just don't. Mind you, she has a boyfriend. has a boyfriend, and she still has her guard up because of the traumas she's experienced surrounding what she considers sexual intimacy with other individuals. In her story, her oral telling of her history, sorry, not story, because these are true. These are very, very true. She talks about how she met this woman, real cool. They was cool with each other, and got to know each other. One night they went out partying. Sorry, she met her boyfriend, this friend's boyfriend, and she gets in the car because he was picking them up to bring them, I guess, to their individual places of where they live. And he was like, "Oh, she's pretty." And she's like, "That's weird. Your girlfriend is sitting right there, although she's my friend. Like, for you to just call me pretty like that." And she said it wasn't just the way he's, calling me pretty. It was the way he said it. Like, why say it like that? She ignored it. They continue to hang out with each other. They end up going out. They go out to a club. And that night, he is just all over her like white on rice. Like, he is grinding all over her, dancing all over her. And she is just like, bro, your girlfriend is right there. And she sees her friend look at her, and she automatically tenses up like, oh my God, she just saw him grinding all over me. I don't want her to think that I'm open to this or whatever. She catches her as she's going to the bathroom, and she says, girl, we cool with that. Like, you can have fun with him. I don't care. So she's like, that's weird, but okay. Again, she continues. I think you can see where I'm going with this one. She continues to just ignore the weird feelings she has surrounding it. And after that party, they go home to her house, and they drinking. They're continuing the fun. They're drinking, smoking cigarettes, smoking a little herb and all that good stuff. And he begins to undress in front of her. And she is like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And he's like, what do you mean, what am I doing? Ultimately, it led to her friend and her friend's boyfriend saying, then what did you lead us on for? Why did you make us feel like you were open to this if you weren't? And she's like, my goodness, what did I do to make you think that I was open to that? I was just being friendly because you're my friend and that's your boyfriend. In no way, shape, or form did I think that you would think that I was being, weird or open to this. Mind you, she asked them to stop. They didn't. Although she was not fully, essayed, she did feel violated, and they did not leave her house right away. They didn't leave until like hours later. And it wasn't because she didn't ask them. They just got tired of begging her to do these things with them. And then they eventually left. Like, and no one knows about, well, she's telling, apparently she and the girl are still friends, but this is like her first retelling of this incident. What? Now, back to one of the themes, silence. If you were to reflect on your own sexual past, good, bad, indifferent, cringy, all of that, how much of it did not tell out of shame? Even if it wasn't your fault, how much of it you didn't share out of shame? How much of it was or still deeply embedded inside of you because you're like, I would cringe if anyone, or die if anyone ever knew that about me, right? Like, it was very eye-opening to read those stories. And then it does go on to discuss themes about race, which is important. I believe 2 of the individuals in the first chapter are biracial. And if it's not 2, I know one is definitely biracial. And she grew up with a white mother, Muslim father, but her mother converted. And she grew up in a traditional Muslim environment. Her father had multiple wives. They all raised each other's children. He was the don of the house. They each had their own floors. One wife lived on one floor, a wife lived on another, blah, blah, blah. It was just very communal living. Unfortunately, that relationship didn't end up working out. He died. He was a drug addict, so he ended up dying. And then her father remarried a man who was really, really mean to the family. She couldn't take it anymore. The white mother, her mother who was white, went back to her family who had disowned her because she married a black man. And she went from living in this communal aspect to now living in a predominantly white environment. And it was like, whoa, culture shock on swole. Like, it was just a lot to deal with. But she said her mother never failed to remind her You are black. She never said you're white. She said, my mother never said that. She said, my mother always reminded me that you are a black woman. Govern yourself as such, act as such, because that is how the world is going to see you. And that was, she said, it was so weird. My white mother constantly reinforced to me that I am a black woman, biracial, light skinned, all of that stuff. But I don't identify as white. And as you know, that comes from a very deep, deep, deep history of slavery. I'm not going to go down that road in this one, but that goes from a very, and if you listen to some of my other episodes, I have gone down that road, where a drop of black, you were black. So I don't even blame the mother for thinking as such, because she was absolutely right. But a drop of black is black, even if you look white, right? But this caused this individual to not feel as if she fit in. She never felt like she fit in. I wasn't black enough. I wasn't white enough. But then she ended up finding this best friend who she has now gone on to have this wonderful, intimate relationship with. But again, it was so intertwined. They talk about how they've never felt, some of these women were talking about how they never felt loved by a black man. And that was like all they've ever wanted was to feel loved by a black man. They feel more accepted by men from the opposite sex. It was very powerful. So one of the ladies in that first chapter was very dark skinned, and how that didn't, she never felt like she wasn't pretty, but others would feel that way about her. The lady who was in one of the biracial individuals talked about how she felt weird to be called pretty, because she used to feel as if she was only being called pretty because she was light skinned. I had never heard that before. That was a first for me. Like, she did not like being called attractive because of her skin color. Like, she did not want to be fetishized because of that. And I thought that was very powerful, coming from someone whose mom called her black, but people, didn't see her as that. So that was a very eye-opening aspect of this first chapter. But all in all, I'm not gonna labor you, because I have not finished the book yet. I'm gonna come back and talk about more aspects of this book. But again, Longing to Tell by Tricia Rose. Get it. You will not be disappointed. It was an excellent, it's so far, it has been an excellent read. I'm not rushing through it. I really want to take it in. Outside of that, let me know your thoughts about some of the questions that were asked in here. Again, you can find me on social media at Aquila Peinado on Instagram, or at Novels with Aquila on Instagram. And here I am on YouTube with Conversations with Aquila. So please set your reminders to listen to this. Let me know if there's a book you want me to review. Let me know if you want to be a guest here to discuss something you read in one of the books that I'm talking about. Like, I think that would be so dope. Outside of that, see you later. Thank you. I'm ending and it's not ending. Okay.